Good evening. There's been a call for a criminal inquiry into the planning processes of one of Scotland's biggest councils after a BBC investigation revealed relationships between a millionaire developer and senior politicians. The investigation reveals allegations that the former South Lanarkshire councillor and Labour MP Michael McCann did not declare his relationship with a local property tycoon and Labour donor called James Keane. Our investigations correspondent Mark Daly has this report.
This is a story about a hugely successful South Lanarkshire property developer and some of his friends. James Keane is a millionaire Labour donor who rubs shoulders with stars like Ali McCoist. But it's his relationships with politicians which have caused concern. This is Jim Docherty, a Labour councillor. Last year the BBC revealed the pair have been good friends for many years. Mr Docherty sits on the Planning and Estates Committees of South Lanarkshire Council, and he has never made a public declaration of his friendship with Mr Keane, even though those committees approved dozens of Mr Keane's planning applications. We discovered that James Keane is godfather to Mr Docherty's child. So, as a councillor sitting on the planning committee, just how close do you have to be to someone submitting a planning application before you declare an interest? The Councillors' Code of Conduct says that councillors must declare any interests which could potentially affect their discussions and decision making.
The test is whether a member of the public, acting reasonably, would think that a particular interest could influence your role as a councillor.
You're a member of the committee that's deciding, you're ultimately a member of the council that might decide something. You simply say, I have an interest in this because it may be you have an investment, it may be it's just a friendship. And it would be wise to say, I have an interest in this, I am a friend of the applicant for this, I will take no part in this discussion. You either leave the room or you literally kind of push yourself back from the committee table and you have it recorded in the minutes.
But is Mr Docherty the only one who should have declared an interest? This is new Labour MP for East Kilbride, Straven and Lesmahago, Michael McCann. Before becoming an MP, he was also a councillor in South Lanarkshire, first elected in 1999. He also sat on the planning committee, supporting dozens of proposals from Mr Keane, but never declaring an interest. And the BBC can reveal that they too are associates and have been for several years. Here they are pictured together at a Labour Party event believed to be in 2005 when Mr McCann was election agent for the area's former MP, Adam Ingram.
I declare that Michael McCann...
Mr McCann won his seat last year after a bitterly fought election campaign.
I know the difference between right and wrong, and I know the difference between acceptable and unacceptable behaviour.
And the BBC understands he held his late-night victory party here in Legends Bar, a building owned by Mr Keane. We've also learned that Mr McCann's daughter keeps her horse on Mr Keane's farm. The farm is less than a mile from the MP's constituency home. Mr Docherty's house, which he bought from Mr Keane, sits in between the two. We asked Mr McCann what the financial arrangements are for stabling the horse, since it's not mentioned on his register of members' interests. He declined to answer. Eddie McAvoy, who's the leader of South Lanarkshire Council, has confirmed to the BBC that Mr Keane and Mr McCann do indeed go back a long time. But he said it was up to the individual councillor to decide whether any relationship should be declared. Over the last 3 years, Mr Keane and his brother have donated more than £5,000 to the Labour Party. Mr McCann's interest in developments involving Mr Keane didn't stop when he left his job as a councillor and became an MP. The BBC can reveal that last September, Mr McCann vigorously intervened in a planning dispute from which Mr Keane could end up making millions of pounds. Mr Keane owns part of this piece of land and wants to sell it to Tesco. But that planning application is going up against a rival one from Asda. This land is owned by Scottish Enterprise. Under Freedom of Information, the BBC has obtained a letter Mr McCann wrote to Scottish Enterprise about its supermarket plans. The letter displays a forensic interest in the deal and contains no fewer than 33 questions, one of which Scottish Enterprise refused to fully answer because it was commercially sensitive. Now the Labour MP faces questions himself about why he got involved in a planning application which could have been in Mr Keane's interest to fail. Senior SNP politician Alec Neil says this is now a huge area of concern.
Very clearly there are legitimate questions to be asked and to be answered, and my view is there is enough information made available now by the BBC that there is a strong case for a criminal investigation to establish whether anything untoward has actually happened. I'm not saying there has or there hasn't, but I think to clear the air and to make sure that the system is above board in South Lanarkshire, there needs to be a criminal investigation to establish the facts.
Mr McCann gave us the following statement.
BBC Scotland has made several unsubstantiated and false allegations. Others are linked to an ongoing court case. I am therefore prevented from discussing these outrageous smears. I complied at all times with rules rightly imposed upon councillors, and I therefore reject any allegation of impropriety whatsoever. Your claim that I have a relationship with Mr Keane is wildly exaggerated.
Mr Keane vigorously denies any wrongdoing in relation to any planning matter. In East Kilbride, Mr McCann refuses to speak to his local newspaper, the EK News, which published questions from opponents about his relationship with Mr Keane. Mr McCann does, however, write a column for the rival freesheet, the EK Mail, which rents its office space from Mr Keane. Mr Keane is one of the paper's significant shareholders.
Well, that was Mark Daly reporting. Mark will have more on that on BBC Radio Scotland at 10:30 on Sunday morning.